the wires and the Wi-Fi, it's still around. I mean, maybe not where you are, but like in a city,
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can preserve, like from, I don't know. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
I
Like,
hear you. Yeah, I hear you. But concentration, there's always a difference. I mean, we are water, the
mhm,
majority water. The Earth is majority water, right? I
mhm,
think if you want to speak scientifically, you could actually say 70% of the Earth's surface is water.
mhm,
95 or 90 something percent of its totality is water, right? And in a similar way, our bodies, if they were compressed into, or disintegrated into the essential materials we're made of, our bodies are 70% water as well, right?
mhm, mhm.
So majority water. And so water, wherever it is, it's affected by concentration, right? So if you have a concentration of trash or of waste in any part of a body of water, that
Mhm.
body would be filthy, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily all water in general, right?
Mhm.
Um, so away from that filth, the rest of the water could essentially be clean. Yes, it's affected, but it's not concentrated, right? And because it's not concentrated, there is some, potential health to it, right? Meaning healthiness to it.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So yeah. So in light of that, I think if in our own personal spaces, we can somewhat control, you know, the amount of frequencies and waves that are going through our
Mhm.
heads or our bodies, and so yeah, you cannot totally block it out, right? If you live in the city, then there's going to be some effect of those waves coming through your house and then obviously through you. But the concentration of it would be limited if you, keep your devices off or away from you, especially when you're sleeping.
So practically when a phone is like, which are the different stages? Okay, the first one is like being completely on Wi-Fi and working. If you switch off, for example, if you put it in airplane mode, is it the
Yeah.
same as switching it off, or is it like intermediate?
No, it's not. It's not the same. And even switching it off is not entirely off. It's smart, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this smartness is not so much about how it's marketed to us,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more about the reality of what smart technology is, right? Smart
Mm-hmm.
technology is a precursor to the ultimate artificial intelligence, which is fully aware, fully alive devices that essentially have some form of decision-making power, right?
You know what
Um,
happened the other day? It was so interesting because
okay.
my tech took call. I was in StreamYard. I was doing an online class, and my
Okay.
Wi-Fi just failed. And in StreamYard, when you are a host, you're the only person who can allow other people to get into the room, as now that you were waiting. So was dropped. The video was going on. The people keep talking. I couldn't enter. Nobody could enter, make me enter because no host practically, because nobody could connect as the host. And it was such an
Right.
interesting state because it was practically there was nothing that could be done. At some point, they just realized something was wrong, and I was writing them in other chats that I cannot connect again. Just disconnect so we can close the room because I cannot do anything else. It was a very, very interesting state.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah, that's weird. So what I keep for my phone voice conversations, I keep one of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Mm-hmm.
like the totally simple black and white, right? Did you see it? It's like a
Yeah.
LCD display. So I keep this for, whenever I need to do like voice conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the object that I use. The guy that I'm talking to you from, and that we're having this video conference
Mm-hmm.
through. That's a smartphone, and I keep that away from my body. If I'm traveling, I keep it in my car. If I'm at home, it's on a little tripod, which is sitting on here. I'll show you. Yeah, it's on this,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? And so it's never really in my sorry, I don't use it for voice conversation next to my head? Yes, I do have a headset, right? Which I use. I succumb to that because what can you do? Right? There's compromises. Yeah, that's why I said it's all about compromises. So
I just keep thinking all the time, like, instead of trying to avoid the external influences, how can we strengthen the internal waves so they kind of create this field of protection as much as
good.
possible? Because there are two ways, actually preventing or actually fighting, not fighting back, but like kind of creating this veil, let's say.
Yeah. Sure. I totally agree with you. So becoming stronger ourselves to be able to combat this technology, that's a confident approach, I would say, right? you meaning that you feel that you can somehow compete and then overcome it, and I believe we can, and you can, right? But at the so I don't know those methods entirely, right? How to do it? Yeah, obviously meditation, grounding yourself, drinking, healthy, clean water, hopefully from a natural source instead of bottled somewhere else where it just looks clean, but it doesn't have any of its original qualities. So water, grounding yourself by walking on, like I walk on grass, barefoot, things like that. Prayer, right? From in every form of religion, prayer offers you an opportunity to ground or meditate. And so, especially like for Muslims, where the head, where your central nervous system, the brain itself is, concentrated there. So it's very rare for your brain to get an opportunity to get grounded on the floor, right? I mean, it's very few, even religions offer you that opportunity, right? Like if the Jewish faith, they move back and forth against a wall. You've seen the Western Wall, right? And so I think they do touch their forehead on that wall, and that wall is essentially connected to the ground, so that it's kind of a vertical grounding, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, so they're still grounding their brain, but as a Muslim, anywhere you are, you can ground yourself, and if you can, do it without the carpet, right? Which is the janmaz that they use, the prayer rug. So instead of the prayer rug, on the actual ground itself.
And I think it's also another thing, like by the time you put your head on the floor, your head is lower than your heart, which is actually a technique that they're using in yoga to clean up the head.
Yeah, there you go.
To remove
exactly,
the blood. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it requires you a religious practice, or if you can do it, through study and find a yoga practice that does it for you, I think this is excellent. Yeah, this is the way to build up our spiritual strength to fight against all of these EMFs.
So I didn't see the documentary that you sent yet. I will see it like later tonight. But at some point earlier this year, I was researching a lot about coherence, and I guess it had to do, because coherence and resonance is practically kind of the same word with in different realms. Resonance is more in the physics. Coherence is more like in the spirituality and yoga, let's say. And I was at some point I had a very interesting insight that practically
We're losing you. I seem to be okay. Nope, can't hear you. Yes, now I can hear you.
I was just laughing because the internet starts falling again very, very early this day.
Yeah.
By the time you touch the subject, it's like automatic. You don't even can finish the phrase.
I've noticed.
Gone.
I've noticed. Yeah.
So I was realizing that it's powerful other dimensions, and I cannot say that I have trained it in a way that I'm able to connect to specific dimensions whenever I want. Not at all, but it was very, very clear that it's a way that can be trained. And the more you get to explore it, the more you can actually understand in which of the dimensions you are connecting, depending on the, probably, I don't know what it depends on, to tell you the truth. It's not so deep in my knowledge in this field yet. But it was very interesting, and it connects to many things. It felt that it's creating a free flow of information. And it's very understandable that for many reasons, it has not been desired that anybody has this free flow of information whenever they want.
Yeah. Sure.
For many reasons, right? So it's interesting to see. I mean, we're getting into conspiracy again, and I don't really like conspiracies, but connecting the dots, they have made some experiments in fish, normal fish, that they put it like in structured water and they put it in tap water. So it's the same kind of fish, two different groups of fish, and the one that is in the tap water, like as we know them, nothing happens, right? The same. The one that is in the structured water, first of all, they start changing color altogether. So in all of them, the colors start changing. Second, they were moving much more like synchronized. So they were moving as one body. And so it felt that they were having much more coherence between them when they were in structured water. And if you extrapolate that to our society, it's very interesting to see why we might not want to have structured water, and we want to have
free flowing, natural spring water. Yeah. Yes. Right. Definitely. All I can say is I totally agree with you. You know, it's hard to, when you're talking about a subject like this, which requires a lot of speculation on our part, because the scientific studies don't want to support this. You know, we have to just admit it. That scientifically, if they came out and said, hey, all bottled water is water, you can drink it, there is some benefit to, you know, as far as, you know, it will take away your thirst, but it doesn't provide you the benefits of what actual water or natural water is supposed to provide, right? There are spiritual benefits, there's nutritional benefits, there's a cleansing effect, right? So those things, bottled water, you know, for the most part will not provide, because would you call that structured or unstructured bottled water?
Unstructured. So structured is the one that's been actually treated for energetically, so it can regain a much more uniform structure. Yeah.
Okay. So again, I think you know, just to reiterate, I totally agree with you. Without having the facts to support you, right? So a lot of things, you know, this even this word resonance, I like this, or this video attracted me even because of its title, resonance, right? So what resonates with you, right? So it's your entire life experience, your body of knowledge that you've gained, all the experiences that you've had. It allows you to determine, you know, to discern things, to determine, hey, is something, you know, does that feel correct? Is that right? Or is it not right? So not everyone, I think, is confident enough to, you know, be able to do that. Some people rely on authorities. I think the majority of the world does, right? We wait for the head of the WHO to tell us, okay, coronavirus is finished. Then everyone's going to come out in the streets, right? Or the president of the country is going to say, all right, we're safe now, so let's party, right? So until that happens, you know, everyone's going to be hunkered into their little rooms and, you know, afraid. So those are people who are dependent on authority figures to tell them what's what, you know, is this good, is this bad, whatever. And then there are others, I think you may be part of that other group, which is kind of, you know, because of your lack of reliance on authority figures, your ability to see between the lines and, you know, see things from your own unique perspective without, you know, should I say dehumanizing? No, not dehumanizing, but not making it diminutive. That okay, I just think that, so it must not be real, right? A lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
are like that. Yeah, a lot of people, they second guess themselves and say, just because I think a certain thing doesn't make it correct. And
yeah.
most likely, if I think it, then it has to be false because I'm insignificant. Until there's someone with a uniform or a badge or a suit and tie, telling me what it is. I really can't trust, this crazy guy or, this woman with all of these gems around. What kind of stones do you have today? I just saw your
So
necklaces. Yeah.
this is in Greek we call it kehribari. It's from the one that comes from the trees that you can actually make. It's the one that's normally sticky. You can make it as a stone in the end. And these actually
Oh,
are
okay.
seeds for the Amazon from the Amazon. So this is not stone. It's their seeds that are painted.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Seeds of a
from
plant
the
or a
Amazon.
fruit?
Yeah. Mm.
Fruit
I bought it.
seeds?
It's I think no. I think it's plant. Yeah, it's plant.
Plant. Okay.
They make like these huge collars in the Amazon for their tribe. So it's one of them.
Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome. So you and I, just by the way we're set, the way we appear, and without badges, without institutions behind us, we are not authority figures. So people who are looking for authority figures to tell them what's good and what's bad and what they should do, we are not the sources of that. This would be considered definitely the alternative perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
But I
so
feel that
I
this is getting a little bit lower with the whole situation, as nobody really knows what to say. I feel that people
mm,
start a little bit trusting more of what their instinct is telling them.
instincts, yes, good
Mm-hmm.
word, yes. Yeah, when I was saying resonate, so it's all about instincts, what you feel, and that's based on a whole body of knowledge, your entire life experience, everything you've learned. I guess from that we can go into the topic that's scrolling across the
Yeah,
bottom of the
please,
screen.
because
You want to do that?
I've never heard about this cosmology theory about Venus. So please, yeah, I'm
Okay,
very keen
okay,
to learn that.
okay. So you even mentioned on here Venus cosmology. So Venus is a tool, right? Essentially, that I use to understand this or to understand cosmology in the end. Uh, but before I talk about that, I want to ask you, even where was your childhood, in Greece or in
In Greece.
Switzerland? In
In
Greece?
Greece.
Okay, Greece. All right. So in Greece, growing up, let's say kindergarten to first grade,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't recall it, you might have revisited those types of environments or those schools and seen what kids have to go through. So before a child even knows his or her own body parts, they don't even know how many fingers they have. They don't know, what to call this. They
Mm-hmm.
probably don't even know how to say ear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before any of that, we teach them cosmology.
What do you
Okay,
mean?
cosmology. We show them, okay, here's the sun, and here's
Oh,
Venus,
okay. Mm-hmm.
here's Mercury, right? Oh, sorry, Mercury, Venus, Earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mars,
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto,
Mm-hmm.
Uranus. I think they pronounce it now. So, anyways, yeah, here's the solar system, and they show these little balls, and they show the whole assortment. This happens at kindergarten. Have
Mm-hmm.
you noticed this? Do you know? Are you
No, I
aware of
don't really
this?
remember that. I thought it was later.
Yeah, so they start then. I remember it, and also I've revisited schools because I had a son when I was in the States. I still have, he's in the States. Um, and so, yeah, I used to visit, kindergarten and first grade and second, all that. And so cosmology is something that we are, now I'm going to use the real word, programmed to understand at a very early age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very early. And like I said, okay, fine. Even if kids know their body parts, they don't know, their own, the various countries. They don't know anything about geography. they're taught cosmology as a precursor to everything else. And it's done beautifully at that age, because we get fully programmed. We never question it afterwards, right? And just like that, I grew up in Houston, Texas, which is the headquarters for NASA, right? And so we were constantly visiting NASA. I ended up becoming a tour guide for international guests that would come to Houston, usually from Pakistan. And my father was somehow involved in grassroots politics there. So any guest that would come, I would be responsible for taking them and giving them a tour of NASA and whatnot. So I was constantly visiting NASA, and I was very much influenced by them. And I never really had to question cosmology, right? Like, why would this be a lie, or why would they not be telling us the truth about the way the Earth is in relation to all of these other bodies, right? And so I never questioned it for 40 years, right? 40 years. I'm 45 now. A lot of times when someone asks me my age, since I don't relate to my body as much, I always say 845. That's my age, because I relate to a person who existed 800 years back, Rumi.
Which person?
And so
okay.
Rumi, yeah. So I relate with him more, and so I feel like my soul's age is more important than the age of the vessel that I'm in, the body. But anyhow, so I'm 45. So 40 years I was under scientific, which is, if I define it, it's called scientific materialist cosmology, right? And what I mean by that, first, all of science adheres to it. The entire world's education systems are based on it, right? So you can't get a different cosmology from any educational institute of the world, right?
True.
Whatever elementary school, university it is, anywhere in the world, you name it, they're going to teach the same scientific materialist cosmology, right? And so that is basically, they've materialized the cosmos, meaning everything up in the sky is also material, just as we are living in this material realm here on Earth, right? And that's one of the goals of materialist cosmology, to make you think from a materialist perspective, that even everything up in the sky is a material object. It's not spiritual in nature.
How was the cosmology? How was our cosmology before the scientific era? So I don't really know, actually.
Oh, okay. So all of the traditional religions, from Hinduism to Judaism to the teachings of Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, through all of their holy books, I've been through all of them, and their cosmology is, number one, spiritual in nature. And instead of being heliocentric, where the sun is in the center and all of these planets are revolving around the sun, all of the cosmologies, according to these religions, if you read in their holy books, it's geocentric, right? Where the Earth is the center and all of the cosmos revolves around the Earth, right? The cosmos never being explained as material objects through these religions. It's described from a spiritual perspective, right? Especially if you go into Hinduism and their explanation, or I think through the Vedas, through explanation of the astrological energies of these bodies, as opposed to their physical structures, right? So all of cosmology prior to modern materialist scientific cosmology has been spiritual in nature, number one. Number two, geocentric, right? Where the Earth is the central realm and the cosmos revolves around it. And so, yeah, totally opposite of what we're being taught, right? So what we're being taught is a 500-year-old effort, right? So from Nicholas Copernicus onward, this effort, and now we've taken it as general knowledge. Like, if anyone questions this cosmology, they're usually considered a Looney Tune, right? Like, this guy has a mental issue. So I didn't have any reason to question it. Like I said, I've met with astronauts in Houston. I've worked with astronauts in the sense that we used to send engineers over to NASA from IBM. And so,
Yeah, it was pretty clear.
What is that?
It was pretty clear that that's how it is, kind of.
Yeah, sure, right. I was convinced. I mean, I've sat in the Saturn V booster rocket, the one apparently that had gone to the moon. It's laying down in Houston, and so we sat and we had lunch in the booster rocket engine with a couple of friends, right? I mean, this is like a normal occurrence. This is not a big deal. Anyone in Houston can tell you that the rocket used to be laid out on the grass, right, on the ground, and so you could walk up, sit down in it, whatever you wanted to do. So these are material objects that provide you. They're artifacts that give you confidence that yes, whatever you believe in regards to materialist scientific cosmology, it's not just theory. There are practical things that go along with it, and there are proofs and evidences. So it was only here in Pakistan where I wrote a book, I told you, and so after writing the book, everything else I had done my own due diligence and research, because it's a travel log. It's about my life. So I've done all that. But when all of the cosmological references I made, I realized that I was just using my understood knowledge of cosmology when I make a statement like the Earth was spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour, right? And the true, spiritual person can make himself aware of that fact by standing still, right? And meditating on it. So I've made statements like this promoting scientific cosmology. I talked about heliocentrism and all of the all of the other planetary bodies and how they move and their material consistency. And then the moon landing, I made references to that in my book, even though I have nothing to do with those things personally, but they have a psychological impact on everyone that lives in the world, right? So I had to mention them or had to reference them. So once I looked at it, once I was done writing, I looked at it and I was in the review and editing process. Actually, I was in the translation process. And then I said, hey, I just think these things are true because of what I was taught in first grade and kindergarten. I haven't gone into astronomy and cosmology and studied it for myself at a more mature age. I should probably do that, right? So that I can be confident about the statements that I made in my book. And this was my sole intention. My intention was not to disprove modern cosmology or to find a new perspective. My intention was, hey, I need to do the due diligence because I wrote about it. I'm responsible for what I've written, so I should back it up with my own research, right?
And what did you find out?
So the stupid things I did was I watched, the star patterns move from east to west. I documented all of them, right? All of the zodiacs, all of the additional stars that are prominent, the moon trajectory, the sun trajectory, right? How it rises, how far away it rises every morning. So I did this for about 6 months. And my focus was, 6 months. It wasn't a job. It was, I was interested and I wanted to do it. So in that time, my main focus of attention was on the moon, right?
Why?
Because it's beautiful and I love the light. It's hard you can't really stare at the sun. I'm looking at the sun right now, and you can't really stare at it without blinding yourself. So it's not, the light it's too powerful, and so you can't watch the sun. You can see the effects of it, but direct gazing at the sun is also not recommended. But it can be harmful. So I did the moon, and I'm more attached to the moon. I don't know, maybe because my grandmother's name, both on my father's side and my mother's side, both of them had something to do with moon.
Nice. What were the
names? So one is Nur Bibi, which is moonlight, the woman of the moonlight, if you translate it. And for my mom's side, it's also John Bibi. Yeah, John Bibi. So that's also a woman of this, or moon lady, basically, right? If you want to translate it. And the effect of the moon on the Eastern world, specifically Islamic nations, a country like Pakistan, which had the audacity to say, hey, we need to design a flag that represents our country. Okay, let's choose the moon. And it's like, logically, well, you don't own the moon. Why are you putting the moon on your flag, right?
Yeah,
The
why is
moon
it put
is
on the flag,
everyone's.
by the way?
Why is that?
Why is it put on on the flag?
Yeah, I mean, they'll tell you that it's the old Islamic symbol, meaning the
Yeah,
Islamic nation in the past has always used the moon. They'll
yeah,
say
but
that
why?
there. Yeah, I know. And then no one goes into the logical reason why, but then there was a battle in Islam. It was named after the moon. It's called the Battle of Badr, and that Badr means full moon. There's, if you read the Quran, the Creator, Allah Himself, describes Himself in Surah Nur, which Nur is described as moonlight. So
Mhm.
Allah describes Himself as moonlight, right?
Okay.
And then when you read in Surah Qamar or other parts of the Quran, whenever the moon is spoken of, the light of the moon is referred to as Nur. And Allah refers to Himself as Nur. And so there's some kind of an association there. All of the masjids have a moon on top of it. They break their fast upon seeing the moon. Ramadan starts upon the moon. The calendar is a lunar calendar, right?
Mhm.
So it's moon, 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 everything when it comes to the Islamic faith. Whereas in Christianity, it's all about the sun. You know,
Yeah.
you worship the Son of God. When you go and find the Jesus in the church, the statue of Jesus, he'll have the rays of the sun emanating from his head, from
Mhm.
behind his head. You'll have depictions of the sun everywhere in the church. The mosques will have depictions of the moon. The church will have depictions of the sun. They refer to they say SON of God, but if when you listen to it, you could ask, if you weren't aware, you would say, do you mean the sun or the sun, right?
Mhm.
You could ask this question because it's the same, essentially, it sounds like the same word. Then Christian calendar is the solar calendar, which is dominant, right? So we all, are aware that it's 2020. When I ask someone, what is it in lunar years? And then, everyone's like, oh, whoops, I don't know. And so the moon has become secondary or insignificant. And what else? Yeah. And so I think more so from from the time of, I think, 1969, the moon landing, right? So
Mhm.
once man has shown that we're able to go to the moon, the first act that man did was step on the moon, which is not really an act of honor. It's kind of dishonor, right? To step on something. And
Yeah.
so it more oppresses or pushes down the lunar world, right? The
Mhm.
world that believes the moon is, in essence, an object worthy of praise. They don't worship it per se, but just as we can say Christians don't worship the sun, Muslims
Yeah.
don't worship the moon, right? At least not, you know, logically, meaning if you ask them, they'll say, no, we don't worship the moon. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Christians
Yeah.
will say, no, we don't worship the sun. But the two religions, the sun representing the masculine energy, and therefore the Christian domination over the
Mhm.
world, whether they like to say it or not. But Christian
Mhm.
nations are the more powerful nations in the world today, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The moon representing the feminine energy, and so therefore, the Eastern countries, although being displayed as oppressors of women, they actually, protect them. You don't have, you can't have open institutions in Pakistan which scandalize women as you
Mhm.
have in the West, right? Where you can
Mhm.
have like these bars or these cabaret type facilities where women are paid for their services there. So this can happen in an Eastern country when it's hidden, right? When it's suppressed or privately without having any advertising. But in the West, you can do it openly, right?
Mhm.
So it's, in a way, if you can see this, I don't know if this is clear to you or not, but the Eastern nations kind of protect feminine qualities
At
in a
least it
way,
started
right?
from there. At least it started from there. That was
Okay.
the initial
Okay.
intention, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. I found this weird to kind of swallow myself because, like I said, I grew up there. So, uh, so the moon. So I'm watching the moon one night, and it's in crescent form. And I should have made a model for you, but the best I can do is this here, right? So the moon is coming down in crescent form. This is the shape, right? And it's actually coming down behind me in this valley. And as it was coming down or descending, setting, I guess they call it, the moon set. Usually you say that for the sun, but you
I
don't
think
say
it's
it for the moon.
the same, yeah, should be the same.
Yeah.
We don't have another word, I think.
Okay. So the moon was setting, and it was a waning crescent. And waning crescent is when the moon is diminishing in its from the full moon status, right? And so below the moon, directly below, was the planet Venus, right? And so as the moon, sorry, where's my camera? Yeah, as the moon came down, Venus was, let's say, right here. Oh, sorry. How am I going to do this? Okay.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Okay. The ring is Venus, right? And so the moon is coming down, and first Venus
Good
is below the
parallel.
moon. Yeah. And then Venus shone through the moon, right? So like literally, like the moon's coming down, and you see Venus in between, right?
Yeah.
And so seeing it through the moon was what basically I witnessed, right? And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I've never seen a star or a planet, because I'm showing it to you as a giant ring, but it was just a tiny light of Venus. It's
How
a
it
brightest
isn't.
light. It's one of the brighter lights.
How's
Go ahead. Ah, yes, yes. How is it possible? So this is the thing. So as soon as I saw that, I pretty much went into, I wouldn't say panic, but I had a hair-raising experience, right? And I was mystified. I was ecstatic. I was bewildered. Yeah, that's the right word. Bewildered at that very moment. And I knew I was seeing something that maybe I shouldn't be able to see, or that maybe doesn't happen on a regular basis. I was thinking that to my mind. Afterwards, I didn't take a picture or anything, because I was in this kind of weird mode the whole time. But I went online and went to Google, and then I found stars through the moon. So people have seen this on the regular. You can see stars through the curvature of the moon, just as you can see the sky through the moon in the daytime. And so, yeah, so these things are understood, but there's always some weird scientific explanation for it, which makes you go, oh, okay, okay. I trust them because they're the authorities, so they must be telling me the truth, right? However, this event, for me personally, it was like the connection of all the dots. Oh, I have to go plug in. Sorry, I'm gonna have to move locations. I'm sorry if we might drop off on the way, but um, let me. That was a good location for Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's pretty stable.
No place to plug in.
So maybe Cosmology doesn't have so many problems with internet.
Okay. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, I can. Oh. We lost him. Let's see. He's back soon. Oh. Hi.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
I'm back.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
The spot I'm at doesn't allow for video
Camera.
because it's
Okay.
I don't get enough bandwidth over here. This is, I think,
No worries.
the spot I was speaking to you from. That's probably
perfect.
where I should hold future conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect. So, you were saying that as soon as you saw the star through the moon, you went
I'll
on
reconnect.
searched.
Hang on.
Mm-hmm. Habib, please let me know if you mean that you need Q for an interview or myself. If it's for myself, just text me and email me. And if it's for Q, I will write in the comments his website. So you can go on and contact him and his website so you can chat. Talking about the moon, the website of Q is Moon Rabbit. So I'm just going to be writing it here. So if somebody can travel if you have any other questions about the moon. So, hi Akil, we are talking about the theory of cosmology and how it's related to Venus. So before we were talking mostly about different types of subjects, about how we never think a second time of how cosmology is being taught to us. And when we say cosmology, we mean how the stars, the universe, the earth, the sun are being structured and how they work between them. So cosmology is one of the subjects that is never ever questioned from our side, from the scientists. And Q was about to explain a theory of cosmology that came through his own observations. And he didn't get the time to get very deep into that, but I hope he will be back soon so he can explain us more about this theory. And we were talking a lot that the moon is the object in the universe that's been represented the most in the Muslim countries. The flag of Pakistan, the flag of Islam, they all have to do with the moon. So you always see the moon there. And practically the religion of Christianity has been associated with the sun, when the religion of Islam has been associated with the moon. Even the calendar in the West is sun calendar, in the East is moon calendar, it's a lunar calendar. That's what we were talking before. And please let me know if you have any other specific questions. In the meanwhile, I would like to know how many of you might know about cosmology, or they're studying the stars, they know about the stars, they know about our cosmos, they're interested about our cosmos. So please let me know, what would you like to discuss about the cosmos, because it's a very, very interesting subject, and it's not so much taught or touched. But this is a super interesting way to understand ourselves and what is around us and how everything that's around us affects us. The stars has always been a part of the world that we love to connect and we love to see. And the moon, for some reason, has always been an object, universal object, that we pray upon, we do ceremonies upon, we allow ourselves to look at, we allow our bodies to cleanse upon, we allow our jewelry to cleanse upon. So there are many, in many indigenous traditions, there are theories that you can put all your jewelry under the moonlight in night of full moon, and then they get cleansed from the energies that are affecting it. So this is a very common belief, and the moon has always been associated. The interesting part of the moon is that it has always been associated with femininity, with the feminine side. So if we talk in the yin and yang aspects, the yang, the masculine trait is the sun, and the moon is the feminine trait, the yin. And this trait is the one that is much more, it's nurturing, it's subtle, it's allowing, it's not very harsh, it's not very straightforward. And it's a very interesting period right now to talk about the moon, because we are facing a period of rising of the divine feminine. The divine, you will see it all around you. The color of the divine feminine, it's this blue here. So this blue represents the divine feminine, and you will see it all around you. You will see brands, for example, that start using this blue all over, and it's not any other blue, it's just this specific blue, this specific color. You will see it in people wearing jewelries about it. You would see it. It's a rising of the suppressed feminine into not how we were doing before, that trying to transform the women into men, but rather allowing women to express their full feminine side as the nurturing and taking care side that our world needs right now. And that's why it's rising. So interestingly, you might feel that your mothers and your sisters and your girlfriends are changing, and they're becoming more powerful, but in a very, very beautiful and subtle way. And that is because of this change of the rise of the feminine. Hi.
Hey, okay.
Now you're back in the spot. That's a good spot.
Yeah, so I actually I had to bring an extension cord and whatever. And so, anyways,
Okay.
I'm done. Okay, so
So I was talking a
yeah,
little bit about the rise of the divine feminine that is related to the Venus, which is a very interesting period right
yeah,
now.
yeah. I'm aware of that too. I mean, from someone who prior to 5 years back, what was that, 2015? I
Mm-hmm.
really had no idea of this whole other cosmological realm, right? I mean, I was studying astrology to a certain degree because I found it to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as I think my first steps of studying astrology was, finding people in my family and associating them with the characteristics of their sun sign, which is
I
really
think that's
basic astrology,
the first study
just to
that
associate
everybody
with the
has.
sun. Sorry. And then I started looking at birth charts and how to read birth charts. Uh,
Have you ever tried to associate the
yeah,
month?
what is it? I
Your
didn't hear you. Say again.
Can you hear me? So, have you ever tried to associate your personal calendar with the zodiac signs?
Yes.
I did an experiment like about a month ago, and I was realizing that the events that were happening in my life, even though I was not planning or
Yeah.
had nothing to do in my mind when they were happening with the zodiac signs, when you see them looking back, you see that there are patterns repeating. So every February was a pattern of disruption, for example. Every March was a pattern of opening. Every April was a pattern of like building. And it feels that every year it's repeating. So it was very interesting. I was seeing the relations with the zodiac signs over the year. I think we lost you again. Can you hear me? Let's see if he's connected. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let's try without camera, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, hi. Now it's back.
So the short answer is yes. I did associate my astrological signs, the ones that are aligned with my birth date, and how that is true as far as character or nature evaluation, a nature of a person or character of a person. I think I limit my astrological research to that,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, prophesizing about the future events or what have you. I'm not so much inclined to do that. And secondly, I don't have the body of knowledge to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you want to know how much it has affected me, well, from a Western zodiac, I'm a Pisces, right, which is a
Mm-hmm.
water sign. Hence, I live in the whale, right? That's probably a side effect of that. And then from an Eastern perspective, my zodiac is a rabbit, right, from Chinese zodiac.
Well,
So,
I was asking actually, are there any
uh-huh.
other system of zodiac signs in the East except from the Chinese? So in Pakistan, do you believe in zodiac signs, for example?
Yeah, Pakistan is a baby country, right? The country was founded in 1947. And so, if you want to know anything about ancient Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
India, right? And the
Yeah.
Hindu culture.
Mm-hmm.
And even the place I live in today was predominantly Hindu and Sikh, the residents here, pre
Mm-hmm.
1947.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just now that it's like 90 something percent Muslim. But prior to that, it was Hindu and Sikh. And so Hindu culture definitely has a huge cosmology.
Mm-hmm.
They even have definitions for the two bodies that are kind of stealth bodies, right? That are in the sky that we cannot see. The only time we witness their effects is during a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse. So they don't associate that with the shadow of the Earth or anything like that, because that goes back to materialist cosmology, right? So they have
So
their
how
own
did you
understanding of that, which now, in the past 5 years, I totally adhere to that.
So how
Yeah,
did you identify that your Isis a zodiac sign, and how does it
go ahead.
relate to the zodiac sign we use in the West?
Yeah. So the Western zodiac is based on 12 signs, which are start them in the sky, like starting from Aries and ending in Pisces. There are 12 signs and 12 structures of stars, and you can use any, Sky Map if you use that on your phone. I have Sky Map, and you can identify them. And then once you get familiar with the stars themselves, you can see them in the night sky and point them out yourself without using a map. In the ancient times, they used to use astrolabe, which is a old instrument that you could mechanically identify the celestial bodies with. So the Western zodiac is based on those 12 signs, and how the sun rises in each it determines your sun sign, right? So like I'm a Pisces, that's based on the fact that the day I was born, the sun rose in Pisces, right? It was March 4th. And so, but the Eastern zodiac is based on years, right? So people from born in an entire year would be the similar sign. So I was born in the year of the rabbit, and that's 1975, right? And so so I'm a Pisces rabbit, and so yeah, I looked up the Eastern zodiac. It's not so much based exactly on the stars that you. It's more what is it? I think it's a lunar zodiac, right? Whereas the Western zodiac is a solar zodiac, right? It's based on the sun being in front of those stars. The Eastern one, I could be wrong. I think it's a lunar zodiac. So it's a 12-year cycle that the moon goes through, right? If I'm correct, you'll have to verify that. So every 12 years, the moon goes back into a particular, mode which associates it. Yeah. So the Eastern zodiac starts with the rat, right? Year of the rat, and ends in the year of the pig. That takes 12 years. So each year is a different sign. And it doesn't begin on January 1st, because that's only the first of the year according to the solar calendar. But people who are on a natural calendar, Gregorian calendar, their first of the year is it's also referred to as Nowruz in Iran, in the Persian culture, and then Chinese New Year is pretty much the same day, and Hindu, I think, Hindu cosmology also has the first of the year, and that's basically marked by spring, right? And that's why
So I'm
in
reading as you're
Christian culture
saying.
they somehow celebrate that, but they call it Easter. Yeah.
So I'm checking as you were saying that the Chinese zodiac is
Okay.
it's changing every 12 years, and actually is an approximation to the 11.85 years orbit period of Jupiter for some reason. It's practically Jupiter calendar, or can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I was a little breaking up, but yeah, overall I could hear you. Okay. So it's based on,
Jupiter.
you were saying?
Jupiter. The 12 years of
Oh,
the sign of
okay.
Jupiter. Yeah. Interesting, right?
Yeah, I'm not, okay. 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 So yeah, I mean, I know that they have it in their ancient books, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they follow it from a book as opposed to looking up in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the Western zodiac or solar zodiac, you can look up in the sky and see which stars are going,
Yeah.
are rising in the east, and where they will potentially be in the morning, and wherever the sun rises that morning, it will be in those stars that are there in the east, right?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, whoever is born that day, that's their sun sign. The Chinese zodiac is a little bit more difficult as far as me to determine. I haven't studied it enough, but associated with it so much that I named my company Moon Rabbit instead of
I imagine.
Moonfish or Moon Pisces. Yeah, so it
So
definitely
tell
had
me.
an effect. But nevertheless, yeah, astrology is really important to me because it's one thing to identify the celestial bodies, right? Like what they are and where they're moving can be referred to as astronomy, as the identification. But to read them, to see what they're trying to tell you, that's astrology, in my opinion. And I'm sorry, I'm not an expert in any of these fields, so I'm just talking off the cuff.
But tell me more about your experience when.
If I said anything.
Tell me more about your experience about when you saw the Venus through the moon.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
So that was a major turning point. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a major turning point in my life. Uh, how's that? Yeah. And so from that day forward, I don't know, psychologically or otherwise, I never used to have.
I think we lost you again. Let's see if he's gonna be back soon. In case you have any questions, or I would like to see if you know which are your zodiac signs, both in the Chinese and in the Western uh, zodiacs. Mine in the Chinese is a dragon, and in the Western is a Gemini. So I would love to hear yours also. It's very interesting to explore these things. So write me in the comments which is your zodiac sign, and if you believe in zodiacs, it would be interesting to know. And let's see if Q can be back. The internet doesn't help so much, but hopefully he'll be back soon. Not really. Let's see. Okay. So let's see. I'm gonna say if it's metal horse. I don't know if there's metal horse or just horse in Chinese, right? And Scorpio in solar. Interesting combination. And Akil is Virgo. Do you know your Chinese zodiac? You can find it from your year of birth. So if you give me your year of birth, I can tell you which is your Chinese zodiac. So let's see. Horse zodiac. Let's see what they say about the horse. So the horse occupies the 7th position in the Chinese zodiac. So I'm talking about Angasif's Chinese zodiac. And occupies the 7th position in the Chinese zodiac after the snake and before the goat. People born in the year of the horse are called horses in China. If you were born in the year of the horse, then you're a horse. Let's see what they say. This horse is associated with the earthly branch and the hours from 11 to 1 at midday. In the terms of yin and yang, the horse is yang, so it's more masculine. As the head of the 6 domestic animals, horses are crucial in transplantation and war, so it's quite yang qualities. Horses are free spirits who need space to be themselves. Recent years of the horses, 1942, 56, 54, 66, 78, 1990, 2012. So we know you were born in one of them. And then the elements, depending on your year, you can see if you're metal, water, wood, fire, or earth. So if you tell me you're 1990, perfect, okay. So 1990, you are horse, your element is metal, and you're between yin and yang, you're yang. And the celestial stem, it's called Zhang, G and G. I'll write it down for you. That's the celestial form, Zhang, of Angasith. And personality characteristics. Horses are full of energy. Horses are full of energy, albeit a bit too much. Both studious and athletic, they're strong believers of chasing after dreams. Rather than wealth and fame, happiness is what motivates them. They expect others to operate at the same speed as them and don't understand why others can't. Contradicting, I think Q's back. So let me know if Angus, if that relates with you. I think you're back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Q? Can you hear me? I think I can hear you back now. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Q?
I'm back. I'm
Perfect.
I can just tell you it's weird. Yes, I can. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
So I'm looking forward to hear the rest of the story.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Uh-huh.
I think you're
Is that
hearing
not
with a
clear?
delay. I
Yeah?
think you're hearing with delay, but I am hearing you pretty well.
Clear or no?
Yeah.
We're messing with the powers that be. That's why.
Most probably.
Okay. Better now? I can talk?
Yes, please.
Should I continue?
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
continue.
writing you in the chat. Yeah. Yes, please.
I can see you, but
But you can't
I'm
hear
not
me.
sure if you can hear me.
Just continue.
Okay. 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 Great. All right. So yes, I'm just going to go back to the Venus moment, and
Mhm.
so essentially from that point forward, I started.
Oh, it's gone again. That's kind of funny. Okay. Oh, really? Yeah, the signs are quite interesting, and you can also observe the signs of other people. Just remember that it is an indication, it's not set in stone. So it's mostly for us to start understanding ourselves instead of knowing what's going to happen. If you talk with experienced astrologers, they will tell you exactly the same, that the stars, and when they can see what's going to happen in the future constellations, it's only an indication. So they can see dynamics. So, for example, they were able to see before this period that there was a very interesting, strong collision of planets, but they cannot know what that means. So, stars give us some signs, but nothing more than that, of course. Though it's interesting to observe, and I would like you to check if you keep a calendar in your phone. So usually for myself, I just go and write down all my events, my meetings, what is happening in my life. So I kind of have a little bit of my history in the calendar. So if you go on and check your last years, you might see that according to the months, your calendar entries actually change. Hi, let's try once again.
This is so. You know what I
Yeah.
think my problem?
What?
It might be these guys. Can you see them
No.
here? No,
No, the camera's not so good. What are
they're.
they?
It's called ant flies.
Ah, okay. And why are
Can
they
you see?
causing? Yeah.
They're ants. You see them all in the sky?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a
So
lot.
just a few minutes earlier, I was sitting here, and they weren't. They were nowhere to be found. But now
Oh,
they're coming out of the ground. Right. This is usually
wow.
the mark of spring. Like, and it
Yeah.
should have been in March. Usually happens every year, like at my house at March 21st, exactly
Really?
March 20. But now it's in April because we had such strange weather. So they're all over the ground here. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
you see them all coming out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah. So the whole sky is essentially covered with them. I mean, they're just all over the
Yeah.
place. Yeah,
Could be.
it's so.
Could be. It's possible. Yeah. Or also
It
like
looks
the.
like if you concentrate if you concentrate on parts of the sky,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like you can see the in the sky because they're so the wings are fluttering. It really looks like a vibration in the sky. It's really strange.
Interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, ant fly. Yeah, it's called. That's what it's called. So yeah, back to our topic. The Venus story. You still want to hear more about it?
Yeah. Let's see if I will be able to.
We can try if the
Yeah.
connection's good enough or not. Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So basically, I had to come to a conclusion, like, what did I see? What was this event, right? And the conclusion, which took me I can say it took me 5 years. I'm still in that process. I'm still in a little bit of a disbelief that what was that? And it's not that it was a isolated event. Many people have seen this besides me, right? Mainly stars through the moon,
all
right?
around the world, right?
So seeing an object through the moon, in a way, it kind of different people from different cultures. Yeah, some cosmologists and astronomers and so forth have seen this, have witnessed many things through the moon. But what it essentially means is the moon is not a material object as we have been taught, right? It's something translucent, potentially, right? You can see through. And number two, it shows objects which are supposed to be way beyond the moon, right? The moon, according to materialist scientific cosmology, is 237 or 47,000 miles away from here. And it's the closest object to the Earth, according to that same science. Venus being, several millions of miles away, is something behind the moon, right? So to be able to see Venus through the curvature of the moon, in a way, if you just look at it logically, it just means that the moon is not a material object, right?
But
It's spiritual in nature. This got me into the whole field of cosmology, and then,
let me ask you something. Is it possible it has to do with the curvature of the light of the stars coming into our eyes?
Yeah, so I read into that theory. That theory is referred to as refraction, right? And so it's saying the large bodies, when it comes to, this would be, you would have to apply what's called the general theory of relativity, right? His theory is based on the rules and laws associated with the large body, including the moon, sun, planet, and that would be quantum physics or quantum mechanics, which studies the minute or small bodies. And so, yeah, there's a theory of refraction. However, science as a whole is based on what's called the scientific method. A lot of people use the word science in replacement of the word or term scientific method, and that means to observe something, to test it, to repeat it, and then get your peers and whatnot to test it and repeat it. And once that has been done, you can say that something has been scientifically tested. When it becomes law, it just requires a lot of people to do it, agree upon it. So that's a majority opinion. So when it comes to refraction, you cannot test it, you cannot repeat it, and therefore I call it a theory, right? It's not something that we from here. And so the excuse that's made is that because these are celestial objects, and that's in the so-called vacuum of space, it's a different environment, and we can't test those things until we ourselves go into the vacuum of space to test them. Yeah, I've gone through all that refraction and so forth, and it to me, it doesn't apply, and it's just an excuse. What I came down to was a unique cosmology, right? So in my cosmology, if someone asked me where, like if I give anyone a sheet of paper and I say, okay, draw what you think the universe or the solar system is structured as. And by the way, no, solar system. That's a system that the entire Earth is involved in, but it's not mentioned. It's called the solar, and the heliocentric model is all about focusing on the sun. The sun is the largest object, right? When you talk about other bodies associated with the sun, you have to refer to that system as a solar system. Your calendar has to be a solar calendar, right? everything essentially becomes focused on the sun. Even if you're going to the moon, right, which they did apparently in 1969, you take a limit Apollo, which is the sun god, right? You
Yeah.
the moon, step on the moon, and so all of this is sun, sun, sun. You kind of, yeah. So if you understand symbology, it affects the way we think. It's all about the masculine energy, right? You know, the
Right.
everything is based on the sun, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even when it comes to the light, the two lights, like the sun is one light, light, right? And they say sunlight
Mm-hmm.
is reflected off the moon. The moon is again humiliated by saying that the moon doesn't even produce its own light; it's borrowed light, right? So that's another insult towards the moon. But when you know, when you look at it, when you measure it, like I'm still you know, scientific minded. I still
Mm-hmm.
believe in the scientific method, regardless what I'm saying, and if people call me crazy or think that, you know, this is insane. But when it comes to the scientific method, I measure things, I test them, and if you know, that's how I determine if something is true or not. I don't just take the authority scientific view, right?
Mm-hmm.
One says lab coat, and I don't just listen to everything he or she. Okay, I agree with you because you're the authority, right? Uh, And so
Mm-hmm.
when I test, you know, when I went through some of my initial empirical evidence type research, I tested sunlight. So if you're in the sunlight with a thermostat, your thermostat would read, for example, that heated temperature, which would be maybe like 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. If you go into the sun shade, meaning where the sunlight is not exposed to the thermostat would lower itself to like 25, right? From 30
Mm-hmm.
to 25. Um, do the same thing with the moon, and it's the opposite effect. So if you go into the moonlight, the thermostat would go lower. If you go into the moon shade where the moonlight is not hitting, and it would go higher,
Mm-hmm.
right? So moonlight essentially has totally different properties than sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
although it's explained to us that it's the same light, it's just reflected off the moon. So anyways, you can go through all of these tests, and it requires you to, you know, restudy the entire subject of cosmology. And in this day and age, we find it unnecessary to do such a thing because NASA, JPL, and all of the various associated, you know, space agencies, RASA, Russian Space Agency, ESA, European Space, all of them, they provide our answers for us. So it just requires us to just sit there silently, listen to what they have to say, and just agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just have to agree with them because they are the authorities. And so science has become, in a way, I think you referred to this as dogmatic, meaning we just take their authority opinion and we don't do our own research on it. We find it unnecessary and redundant. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I went through this process and I came up with a totally different result from what science is teaching us. So if someone asks me my cosmology, I say it's geocentric, right? And I say all of the that we see up in the sky, they're spiritual in nature, not material, right? And and then I can go through the whole process of explaining this. But as I was doing my own studies, I ran into a movement which, you know, I don't totally adhere to the terminology of that movement, but a lot of the end results you know, that they've come to, I do have to agree with that. And that movement is called the Flat Earth movement, and you've probably heard of that.
Yeah, I have heard about it.
No, no,
Yes, of course.
you've heard about it. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's basically geocentric. Yeah, yeah. But the problem I find with the Flat Earth movement is they're leaving one model, right, which is the globe centric model, which includes the globe Earth, and then they go on to model without being able to fully observe it. meaning they think that's what it is, but since they're unable to travel to Antarctica and chart where Antarctica, they just presume that the flat Earth model which they've come up with is true. And so what I say is true cosmology is yet to be discovered. It's undiscovered. And I think all of the religions kind of guide us towards it. But most of the religions, their books have been reinterpreted to science, especially Islam. It very much aligns with whatever science has to say. They kind of agree with it. So anyways, that's
So, like,
I can speak in more detail, but it would require a question, I guess.
if the Earth is flat, where does it finish?
Right. So when you say the Earth is flat, you have to understand what it really means. It doesn't mean that you know the shape of the Earth. It means that biology we're being taught, that's what it really means. Flat Earth equals scientific materialist cosmology is incorrect, right? That's really what it stands for. Then they go on to presume that they know what the correct model is, although Earth as infant students, right? They don't have these large institutions. They don't have rocket ships. They don't have all the equipment to come to their conclusions. And so any conclusion someone who adheres to flat Earth makes is based on pure speculation, right? So we when they say the Earth is flat, what it really means is scientific materialist cosmology is false. Now, if you want to go into the details, from my readings or understandings of flat Earth, it means that Antarctica is not a piece of land under a globe, right? It's actually the surrounding body which surrounds the Earth. It's a circular body which surrounds the Earth. If you want to look at it as the crust of a pizza, basically.
I have to admit that I have difficulties to.
That makes sense? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I have to admit that it's kind of difficult to grasp or to jump on the idea.
Yeah, well, it might be interesting. I mean, there's so many. It's such a huge, vast subject, but it might be interesting for you to note that 1958, which was post World War II, 1958, they founded the Antarctic Treaty, which made Antarctica the only land mass on Earth which is not either a country or associated with a country, right? And no one is allowed to go there unless they're signed a pre-planned guided tour, which is heavily controlled. And the same year, 1958, NASA was founded. And so, to understand, that if you want to figure out the whatever's false about NASA, you need to know what's true about Antarctica, and vice versa. So these two are somehow directly associated. If you don't understand Antarctica, you will believe to tell you. If you understand Antarctica, then you cannot believe what NASA has to tell you. That's if that makes sense.
And what is the why creating?
And now it's the call for prayer.
Of course. We do have like 10 minutes still until I go to the next call. So, and everything that we have seen from the pictures, for example, from the space, how does that relate?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
So yeah, I don't even know if you can hear me because there's so many prayer calls in the background.
I can hear you pretty well.
Maybe we should. It's gonna go on for the next 5-10 minutes.
It's okay.
Yeah.
People are asking also about the flat Earth.
Basically, yeah, the belief in pictures we're at spiritual bodies. Okay. Um, yeah, there's no too much.
No, we can hear you pretty
Mhm.
well.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. I'm trying. Okay. So, what is it? Flat Earth. I can't do it. It's too loud. Can you? Do you mind hanging on?
I will have to go in 10 minutes, that's the thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How many churches do you have around? Mosques, sorry, I keep calling them churches. For me, everything is church.
Mosques.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. Same thing. Place of worship.
yeah.
But these are focused on lunar energy as opposed to solar, right? The church is focused on solar energy, whereas mosques are more focused on lunar energies, right? Yeah, there's 17 azans, meaning 17 calls, unique calls to prayer that I can hear from my house
Oh, wow.
here in Ogi. So there's many, yeah, there's plenty of them.
That's a lot.
Yeah, just in the earshot, meaning I can hear them with my own ears. Yeah.
Mhm. So, okay, as we
Sorry.
are, I mean, most of the people are also praying. What is expressed in the prayer? Like, could you translate? Are you able
Mm.
to translate?
Mhm. Sorry. Mm. Almost done. No. Okay. Stuff. Okay. Okay. I'm back. All right. So you want me to answer this question that's
Oh,
been typed up here?
mm-hmm. Would be interesting to answer
It
this one.
says,
Yeah.
kindly elaborate more about flat Earth and the spiritual bodies.
Mm-hmm. Please go on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think we lost him again. Oh, the internet doesn't help today. So in case, and Gareth, if in case Q is not able to connect with us again today, I will take this conversation into another discussion in the following days, because I think it's a subject that is quite interesting for all of us to understand, because cosmology, like this new type of cosmology theory. So just stay tuned. I think we will need to close for today, and we will have to. Okay, we'll have to finish for today because he's having problems with the internet, but we will take this conversation to another day. So I'll turn your light. Okay, perfect. So you will soon see our next conversation with Q. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and for their interesting questions. And Jonathan, good to see you. How are you? Of course, I remember you 6 years ago. So with Jonathan, I met 6 years ago in Mexico. Sorry, he's from Mexico. We met in Brazil and Rio. So thank you so much, everybody. And Hassan Karim, that you're talking about the stars and the galaxies. Please let me know whatever would you like to know so I can ask you for the next time. Thank you.